give a little preface to today's episode that there will be quite a lot of medical talk. So if you're somebody who has any kind of like medical anxiety or anything like that, we're hearing open discussions about bodies and organs. Just be aware of that before you start listening to the episode.
And also, if you have any kind of medical trauma, you may also want to skip through to some sewing chat at the end. Yeah. We are aware that when we're talking about women's health and experiences of healthcare, they can be incredibly challenging for some people. So we will not be offended if you want to skip through. And what Sam will do is in the notes for this episode, we'll put the time at which the sewing dilemma related chat starts. So you can still get some sewing stuff. Talk about female healthcare. We're talking about women and AFAB, so assigned female at birth.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Enjoy the episode. Here we go. Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of So What's New in the Biscuit Tin. It's episode 6, and I have a very special guest with me today. This is Sam. Let's find out who our guest is.
Hello, for the first time actually on the pod, and I feel very strange and very excited about this. I am a guest today because, as many of you will know, and hopefully even more of you will know after this year, I run the endometriosis awareness sewing challenge, Sew Yellow for Endo, and Sam has decided that she would like to interview me for this because I'm bad at talking about my own stuff. So I'm going to be your guest today, which feels weird, but hello.
So welcome everybody, welcome Jess to our episode all about craftivism and specifically focusing on Sew Yellow for Endo because it is a really important cause around craftivism which you set up. So let's start with our biscuit. So what biscuit are you today?
Oh my God, I think I'm a collection of crumbs. I don't think I'm a whole biscuit at the moment, guys. I am exhausted. As a lot of you know, obviously I do Sew for Endo. We are moving house, thankfully not for a few weeks now. I've managed to put it off till after Sew for Endo this year. But I am also learning to drive, and I have a huge amount of my PhD due soon for my first annual assessment. So I'm a selection of crumbs. However, there are some very exciting things coming up.
So there's probably a decent chocolate chip crumb there.
I think, there's exciting crumbs. Maybe I'll coalesce into a whole biscuit by the weekend. We'll see how we go. How about you, Sam?
I am today like a stale custard cream. So for our American listeners, a custard cream is a bit like a vanilla Oreo. I think we talked about this in the previous episode.
Did, yes.
And I put Oh, no, I know where I was talking about it. I talked about it in...
You guys have yet to come for this episode. It's a cracker. We've got a surprising number of American listeners, actually, who are like, what are biscuits?
I was in one of my virtual sewing socials trying to explain to a person what a custard cream was, and I had to put a picture on Instagram. So the only way I can describe it for our American listeners is it's like a vanilla biscuit.
It's like an Oreo, but much better. Much
so
like
when they're
iconic.
Fresh, nice. You've got the filling in the middle, some nice sort of vanilla biscuit on the outside. When they're stale, they're literally
so soft. We don't understand how something could become that sort of. It's not even like crumbly. No, it's just sad.
Yes. And that's how I feel today.
Oh my goodness. So guys, we'll try and liven ourselves up a lot, but we're in it with you. I know lots of people feel the same.
Of the pod biscuit, end of the pod biscuit, because actually while we're talking, often it just brings us
oh my
out
God,
of
yes.
it, so can I ask you at the end?
Can I also say I really enjoyed the fact that Sam said welcome to the pod to me because we're sat in my living room. It feels very strange to be told to welcome to my own living room, but I'm very much enjoying it. And I love that we're now recording in person. So a little favor from me, guys, if you have noticed a difference and you like it when we record together, if you think it sounds better, obviously we're still feeling our way through the podcast world, but if you enjoy it, please do let us know. Leave us a little review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to us, and it helps new sewers find us. So write a wee comment if you can.
We're past the halfway mark in season 1.
We are
we're already planning season 2 because we've had such a great reaction.
Yes,
so this is quite a great episode to have when we're past the halfway mark.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Because at the beginning, that's all we were doing was talking to each other, and then we've had some great guests, and there's some more to come. So now we're having a little reset just with each other again. So I think the first thing I'd ask is, we could start with the why Sew Yellow for Endo, but let's go for why craftivism was your route to make a difference. Let's go that way around it.
Okay, that is actually, no one's asked me that, so that's a solid question. So there's a couple of reasons. Firstly, I was already very active in this space. I was already very active in the sewing community. I had a little bit of a following, or not a following because I hate that as a phrase, but a community building. And I think for me, originally, as sparked most things, was sort of, I felt a level of outrage that when I spoke about, just casually on one of my stories, I said, oh, sorry guys, I'm not quite, feeling it today. My period pains are really getting me. And I got a message from an older lady sewist who told me that speaking about my period wasn't appropriate. Now, obviously, it absolutely is appropriate. It's my account. I'm chatting to my friends. It's super appropriate. I wasn't showing you guys it. I was just talking about it. But what it made me realize is that even in what is an overwhelmingly female space, I wasn't free to talk about something we all get and understand and have. And so for me, whatever I've always wanted to do some raising awareness for endometriosis since I had my surgery. But I realized that I was like, this is a space I could make a huge difference in. So I wanted to engage with the sewing community specifically because it is 1 in 10 women. It's the second most common gynecological, though it's not really, but it is, condition in the UK. Yet, when I started talking about it, so few people even knew what it was. So for me, a big part of the reason I went for craftivism is it's an area I know. And I'd seen these Instagram challenges and I'd seen how people could get involved. But also I just felt like it was a really important group to educate about it.
To give information. That they
exactly.
Might not have.
And that has been proved by the number of people who've messaged me saying, I didn't know what it was, and now I have my doctor's appointment. Now I have a surgery. Now I've had my surgery and my quality of life's massively improved. That's why. And I felt craftivism was a way I understood. And it was a sort of unique way as well of going, let's sew, but we don't tend to just sew on our own, do we? We talk to other people. And one of the big reasons, and I think one of the things that sets Sew Yellow for Endo apart from other challenges, you're not just sewing. You're talking. You're talking about menstrual health. You're listening to people share their experiences. You're listening. There is an educational side to it.
Yeah. So there's lots of brilliant sewing challenges out there, and some of them, are great because they might push you to do something you haven't done. So, for example, like Sew Up Cycle, it always reminds me how much I love doing it.
Yeah.
And so Selfless Sew is great to give you an opportunity to persuade someone if you don't get to sew for other people.
Yeah.
But sometimes having a challenge where there's another aspect to it, and I think that's what stands Sew Yellow for Endo out, is that it's quite clearly about sort of informing whilst also giving a purpose to the sewing.
Exactly. And it is craftivism because we are sewing, but yellow is the awareness colour for endometriosis. The other thing is, one of the big reasons I do the Instagram live program is sometimes I'll get medical professionals on, but more often than not, it is sewists sharing their experiences with endometriosis. And the impact of that has been fascinating because it's not, here's this random influencer who, talks all about menstrual health and stuff coming to talk to me. That is cool. But it's people that they know in the community. They go, oh my God, I know this person. I had no idea they had super extensive surgery and had a hysterectomy, or they had, X, Y, Z. And I think that's the biggest thing about endometriosis for me. The number of people who, when you start talking about it, go, oh yeah, I had that. Like my partner's grandma, when he told her I was having my surgery back in 2019, she goes, oh yeah, I had a hysterectomy for that. No one in their family knew that was, they knew she had a hysterectomy, but they had no idea that was why. And I get calls from my grandma every year saying, thank you for doing this. Because it is like, people don't talk about it. And I just felt in such a social, heavily female space, if there's one thing at the end of Sew Yellow for Endo, obviously, I want you to sew yellow. I'd love you to donate and help us fund endometriosis research. But frankly, if you have one open and honest conversation about menstrual health, that is a win for me. I'll take that.
And I think you're right. There is still some generations where talking openly is hard because they were not brought up to be able to talk openly. So it's quite confronting when it happens, but by having the sort of the sewing aspect, it does, because craftivism, I think that's the whole sort of idea behind it, is that there's a way to be active without being aggressive. And I think sometimes people get a little bit scared about activism because it can feel like there's only one way. And we, and the media does often vilify activism.
Yes, it does.
But by having that craft element, it brings other groups of people in that perhaps wouldn't see themselves as activists as well.
And also gives people an opportunity to engage with something. I think the beauty of activism, and particularly craftivism, you can do it however works for you. And it was really important to me that So Yellow for Ender has multiple tracks. It has multiple ways you can get involved. Because for you, like for me, obviously, the activism of calling for better standards of healthcare, for calling for better, that's hugely important. But it's actually evenly weighted for me with the education, because the biggest thing for me in a lot of ways is giving women the confidence when they're sat in those never-ending appointments that are deeply unhelpful a lot of the time. It's giving them the confidence to go,
to go away and come back again another time.
Right, exactly. It's giving people the confidence to know, sitting in those appointments, they can demand a referral. To know they're not alone, to know they're not 30% of women. It was, I need to double check the statistic for this year actually, but this was in 2021. 30% of women had been told their symptoms were psychosomatic.
Well, it's a bit like HRT in the amount of women that were prescribed antidepressants.
Yes.
And, obviously, as our regular listeners know, Jess and I have a significant age gap between us, but it happens at all ages of for women, whether that's between not being taken seriously with endometriosis or when you get to my age. Now, I was very lucky that I had a doctor who was an expert in menopause, and I wasn't made to have the blood test to see if my hormones were changing. I was listened to and I was believed. But I know, and anybody who watches YouTube will know, there are other sewists out there who haven't been believed when they've been to the doctors, and who have been made to feel like they're making things up or over exaggerating, and it's the same with HRT and with anything. There are nice guidelines around what you are entitled to. And I would say to any of our listeners out there, male, female, or any other gender, that if you feel you're not being taken seriously, look up the nice guidelines. Yeah, absolutely. You can be armed with those. You are allowed to go into those appointments. Like, I got my surgery in the end by basically going in and saying, I want this gone. I need to know what other options there are. Because the thing is, when I got my surgery at that point, I had 3 to 4 months of trying different pills, as in like contraceptive pills, which are one way. I don't necessarily, depends on you. I'm not giving medical advice. Yes. But it is often given as a treatment for endometriosis, particularly the progesterone only mini pill, because there is some evidence it can inhibit growth, but then also that's kind of anecdotal, the whole thing. But for me, I'd spent 6 weeks throwing up at like 4 or 5 times a day. I was weeping. I couldn't do it anymore. And I remember going to that appointment. It's one of the only appointments Adam came with me to, where I was like, I need help because I can't. You can't function. I just can't do this. And it was needing someone else to hold my hand, which is nothing to be ashamed of, by the way. Please take a support system with you. We've already had one of the Instagram lives with Beth and the Bobbins, where we talked about the importance of developing support systems when you have endometriosis, because it shouldn't just be you and the consultant. There's so much as well. We have to recognize the sort of unpaid labor of our partners and things like that. When, if I think about it, obviously everyone has a different experience, but for me, I remember Adam washing my hair once because I physically couldn't move, and I was like halfway through showering and suddenly I couldn't stand anymore. And it's things like that your partner shouldn't have to do for you, and it's incredibly lovely that they do, but sort of recognizing the toll it's taking, sometimes going to the appointment together, it shouldn't have more force, but it can really help. And I would say, learning from what my mum, obviously my parents are, elderly is the word now. I don't really ever use that word, but watching my mum, a very proud lady who's been very independent all her life, accepting that she needed to let my dad help her in the hospital to push for things when she needed help, and her finding that really hard because it felt like she was giving up and she wasn't fighting hard. Exactly, but that's not the case at all. But I also said to my mum, you need to let dad help, because this is the only thing he can do right now.
Yeah.
You know, you're in pain, you're struggling. He can't resolve any of that, but the one thing he can do is advocate for you.
Yeah. Or just even like for Adam, he didn't say anything in my appointments, but he sat there and he held my hand, and it just meant I had this little extra backup to go, I have the power in this room to say, I can't do this anymore. I need help.
However much nowadays, you know, we want to believe that we are strong, independent, confident women. We can be both vulnerable and independent
Yes, we can.
at the same time.
And it's also not a weakness to ask for help.
No.
In any type of, any situation, frankly, but particularly in a healthcare situation. The other thing I would say is that we do not adequately consider the impact on lives and lifestyle of like with people with endometriosis. And what I mean by that is, and the reason I will circle back round to why this is important, part of the reason we share the Instagram lives, you will notice there are some people who've had fertility problems. There are some people who haven't. There are some people for whom fertility is entirely irrelevant because they cannot walk. And the reason we do this is because I was hugely frustrated by how fertility focused my care was. When actually I was like, yeah, okay, we can think about that in a long-term way, but what are we going to do about the fact I can barely walk?
Yeah, quality of life.
Exactly. And there was no consideration of quality of life. It was, well, do you want kids or not? And when I was like, oh, I don't know. And he's like, because we can just take your womb out. The exact words of one of my first appointments. I was 21. And I was like, A, that's not a solution. But it was like everything revolved around whether I wanted kids or not, rather than, right, well, actually, you're in agony and you're taking all these painkillers. And I lost, like, I've had to remap loads of nerves in my pelvis because of the amount of pain I was in for so long. But that really wasn't considered. And the fact that my care could be so fertility focused when that wasn't a priority for me. I didn't want to lose the ability. I mean, I don't know if I can have kids. Exactly.
Later,
but also that should not have been the only thing we were looking at.
No.
So while this year there are some conversations around fertility that are fascinating, I also want to make everyone aware that if you're going into those appointments, whether it's endometriosis or PCOS or ovarian cysts or any of the many very uncomfortable pelvic conditions women can have, if they start banging on about your fertility, you are allowed, and in fact should, steer the conversation back round you. And that's why I do so for endo. It's to give people the equipment to deal with these situations. It's to know you're not alone. It's to see that wave of yellow and go, oh my God, I am supported. And the other thing, and I'm sure we'll talk about lots of things today, but the other thing I'm going to slip in there, one of the things, we talked a little bit about what you can do to help and what you can't do to help. One of the biggest things you can do as a woman for other people with endometriosis is to believe them. Just because your period is lovely and comfortable and you might have to pop one paracetamol and have a sit down occasionally does not mean your experience is universal. There is nothing worse, and it is why I started the whole thing, than being told, oh, don't talk about that, don't moan. Our generation didn't moan. It's like, yes, because you kind of weren't allowed to. And also, this isn't moaning. This is, if this happened to men, we would have solved it 50 years ago.
But also, there is no badge of honour in struggling. And I know, you know, I grew up in a time where you did just struggle on. You know, and you know, I remember at 18 going to the doctors because I would lie on the floor in the bathroom, unable to move. And I was fobbed off. And I'm pleased to say it clearly wasn't endometriosis because it went away for a significant amount of time. But funny enough, it's come back. And I actually have a fibroid and a cyst.
Oh, God.
And my fibroid is on a stalk and is about 6 centimetres.
Oh, my God.
But I've only found that out by pushing. But even my experience, you know, and most of the time I'm very lucky that it doesn't affect my quality of life. But I went through many gynecological calls where I was made to feel, well, you know, because I feel sorry for the professional at the end of the phone whose job is literally to keep ringing people up and hoping that they don't want anything else. And because I've never had children, I've never really had internal exams until I reached my 40s, and then I'm being licked inside and things are being
my God, internal exams are just a joy. Serious note, actually, it is worth saying that if you're listening to this being like, oh God, I couldn't, it's too embarrassing. One of the top reasons there was a study done that showed one of the top reasons for women not seeking help for severe gynecological pain was menstrual shame and embarrassment. And part of that comes down to embarrassment at bodies being looked at, etc., but also shame at not being able to deal with what you perceive to be normal. Firstly, there is no such thing as a normal period because everyone is different.
Yeah.
And the idea that it's normal and you can't hack it, frankly, is rubbish.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you now, if one of the many, many people over the years who've messaged me basically telling me to shut up whenever I do this challenge, because there's always a few, if I gave them the 3.5 weeks of period pain I used to get, they would be weeping and begging for research funding.
And do you know what? Pain is a very personal experience.
Yeah.
And no one has the right to judge or question anyone
they
else.
don't.
Headaches. We treat headaches. We don't say we've got to struggle through those.
No.
You know, we need to. No one needs to struggle through anything.
The instant reaction to a headache is, "Oh, do you want some paracetamol? Why don't you have a lie down?"
Yeah.
Period pains. Oh, can you not just deal with it? You're like, no, my womb's basically falling out of my body. Yeah. But yeah, it is one of the big reasons I started this is to combat shame, to remove some of those taboos, to show people that you not only can but you should talk about it.
So I would say if someone's sewing something yellow, let the people in your lives know why you're sewing something yellow.
Yes.
That would be a great thing.
It is. Yeah. And come to the Instagram lives as well. Ask questions. So
what else are you doing this year? Because this year is like,
oh my God,
isn't there?
Oh my God. So firstly, just a quick one. So if you're like, oh my God, what's Sew Yellow for Endo? You still have time to enter. I will talk through very quickly the strands of Sew Yellow for Endo. So first of all, we have our base level, the Sew Yellow challenge. Real easy, real simple. You sew something yellow, you donate £1 or more if you're feeling generous to the endometriosis Just Giving page, which is linked in my bio. It's #SewYellowForEndo24 on Just Giving, so you can find us there as well.
We'll put it,
we'll put it all in the show notes as well. And then you post your make on Saturday the 23rd / Sunday the 24th of March if you're in a different time zone. You post it on Instagram, make sure you tag me, use the hashtag, and you show us all your beautiful yellow make, and then you may be in with a chance of winning a fabulous prize. And this year we've got some cracking prizes. So that's the base level fun sewing challenge.
The next exciting bit.
Yeah.
Someone like myself who can't wear yellow in my face.
Oh yes, of course.
Disappearing head syndrome. Yellow in my face.
Sorry, that's a great sentence. So it can be yellow. It can be slightly orange because we've had people do orange before. It can be yellow accented. It can be black with tiny, tiny bits of yellow. Really, what matters is that you sew.
Yeah, and that you take part and you hashtag, because the more we overload Instagram, the more people who don't know about it might get to see it.
Well, exactly. Well. Plus, we've raised over £4,000 in the last 3 years, which goes to Endometriosis UK. So please, it's a tiny charity and it supports it's like 7 million women or something it supports at the moment. So if you can take part, even if you can't take part and you want to just donate anyway, you can do that. If you do donate though, please, from the bottom of my heart and the bit of my brain that's leaking out of my ears, put your Instagram name against your donation. I cannot explain how much of every year I spend going, is that them? Trying to match it to your Instagram.
When it's something like sewing piglet and you're like, who is that?
Exactly. So please enter, please make sure you do that. All details on my Instagram. Now, that's first level. Level 2 is our Instagram live program. So every Wednesday night at 7 p.m, 8 p.m, there'll be a thing on my Instagram because sometimes it changes because life is life. We have a story from an endometriosis warrior who is sharing their story tonight because this comes out on the 13th of March. Tonight, you can catch up with myself and Kim from So Much to Say. Now, Kim has guested with us twice before. She won't mind me saying this because she's told her story fully, but Kim had a radical hysterectomy and a bowel resection that involved removing 9 centimeters of her bowel. And that was actually the first year So Yellow for Endo happened. Fun fact, Kim and I had the same surgeon, which we discovered on an Instagram live while we were chatting. We were like, oh my God. But she is fabulous and she is going to talk to us all about surgical menopause tonight because, as we will see, is a theme a lot this month. You don't always get told what the ramifications of what's happening to you are going to be. And a lot of people talk about hysterectomies, but don't realise that means menopause.
Yeah,
and that
your body into that,
and it is not adequately explained by medical professionals to people who get hysterectomies.
If you can't listen to it live, is there a way to hear it?
Yes, it is posted on my Instagram as a video, so you can stick it on. They're normally somewhere between half an hour to an hour. You can stick it on like you do a podcast while you're doing the washing or while you're having a bath or whatever. Stick it on and you can listen to us.
But there's more.
There is more. Oh my God, there is more. So a couple of things that are very, very exciting. First things first, in 3 days' time.
Yeah.
Oh my God, 3 days' time. You will see myself and Sam, because I've convinced her to join this now as well. You will see us on the catwalk with my handmade wardrobe at the Sewing for Pleasure
This
show.
is the first catwalk I've done since I was 16.
I have never done a catwalk.
So art thing.
Oh my God. Well, I have never done one. We will be wearing clothes we have made, including a yellow make each.
Mine will be accents of yellow.
Yeah, yours will be accents of yellow.
Otherwise,
Mine is the yellowest thing in the world, and I can't wait. And gold shoes, obviously. But we will be on the catwalk. I will also be saying a few words about So Yellow for Endo.
I'm thinking that you've just given me permission to buy another pair of shoes.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, with your own money, and disclaimer here, I am not influencing her negatively. She was probably going to buy shoes anyway. But it is very exciting.
It's always a possibility that I might buy shoes.
I'm with you there, don't worry. In solidarity.
So you're actually going to speak as well?
Yes, I will be saying a few words. Not many, just a few about what So Yellow for Endo is, because there's such a yellow element to the catwalk. But come along, say hi. Neither of us have ever been to the Sewing for Pleasure show as well.
This is my first actual sewing show.
Oh my God, is it?
Yeah.
Of course it is.
Yes.
Yes.
Which you'll hear more about in 2 weeks' time.
Yes, you will. After we've been to this one. And I'm going to the
yeah.
Stitch Festival this year as
So
well.
I am hoping I might be able to record a few snippets while we're at this for a future special pod.
That would be fun.
But I said on my recent vlog, I know you've only got 3 days, but if in the 3 days you listen to this before the 16th of March 2024, if you want to go to Sewing for Pleasure and you're going on your own and you're feeling a bit sort of lonely or whatever, come and find me.
Yeah.
And say hi, because I would like that.
I'd like that too. Come see.
So please do. We'd like that. We're not people who don't bother me.
Oh my God, no, I love
me.
meeting people. I feel so awkward when I don't know anyone. So please come and say hello. We are both at Sewing for Pleasure show on the Saturday. The catwalk is in the morning, and then we'll be there for a good amount of the day. So please come and say hello. And if you are around for the catwalk, we'd love to see you there waving at us. There's nothing more awkward than an empty catwalk. So please come and support us. And if it wasn't enough, the weekend after is the Stitch Festival, which I will be at. I'll be there on the Saturday, so come and say hello. But I'll only be there on the Saturday morning for a very, very exciting reason. And that is because for the first time ever, first time in 4 years, So Yellow for Endo is having a party.
Which I'm hoping to come to, depending on whether life lets me.
Yeah, absolutely. But I know that you will be there in spirit, if not.
I will.
Tickets are available from my account through the Eventbrite link, and only there. You do need to get a ticket because it's a limited space. No, we're about halfway through.
Right.
So actually, by the time this comes out, probably less.
Get a move on if you want a ticket.
Exactly. So tickets are £7.50, and that includes a £5 donation to Endometriosis UK. We're holding it at the yellowest venue of all, Sew Me Sunshine.
Will there be fabric that people can practice?
Absolutely, there will be. So Harriet and her team will be standing by. Plus, I'm negotiating with sponsors at the moment to provide some very exciting goodie bags for you all. So come along, help us support. All you've got to do is wear something even remotely yellow. I don't care.
I've got some yellow fabric, which I'm planning for So Yellow for Endo as well. So on the bottom half, and I'll be fine.
And we will be live watching the fundraising page that day as well. Because the last few years we've raised over £1,500 per year. So
make this the best one then.
I would love to make this the best one ever. So there's a lot going on.
But that's not it. There's also a vlogger tour.
Oh my God, of course there is. Guys, I'm so sorry. You're in it. Oh my goodness. Do you know what it is? I'm so immensely grateful for the buy-in I've had this year from the sewing community. You have all been incredible. If I have forgotten to mention you, because my brain apparently isn't even in this room, it's somewhere on the floor of the sewing room surrounded by fabric. There are some phenomenal vloggers to watch. So in the show notes, we'll put the little picture so you can check it out. You can look on my story every day and see who's vlogging. I'm obviously vlogging quite a lot. Sam is on there, and also lots. 22nd or something. I think so. Yeah.
So I can tell you now, for our podcast listeners, you can have a preview to what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about how to sew yellow when yellow isn't your colour.
Thank you. That's a brilliant idea.
I planned that this morning.
I love that. I love that so much. You will see vlogs from me throughout the month, which really involves me going, oh my God, guys, it's going so well. And then the occasional sewing show I've been to. But So Yellow for Endo is very dear to my heart. I had a great message recently where someone was like, oh, it's so good you're doing this. I've had my surgery. And I was like, oh, thank you so much for sharing. And then they said something. I was like, oh yeah, I found that after my surgery as well. And they went, wait, you had endometriosis? And I was like, right, okay, for clarity, guys, part of the reason I run this is because I had quite severe endometriosis and I had very extensive surgery in 2019. My story has been shared 1,000,003 times. So you can find it from previous years. I'll share it on my Instagram again so that you guys don't have to hear me say the same thing again. But it was quite a road. So Yellow for Endo is my baby. It is something that allows me to share it with people.
I think this is an amazing thing that can happen to some people, and this is something Darren Brown wrote a book called Happy, and he said part of feeling happy is creating your own narrative. So from something that was really, I don't think we can underplay how awful this experience was for you. But you have taken that on a journey you've been able to gift others knowledge, experience. You've been able to gift something sunshiny and yellow out of it. Obviously none of you can see, but right now Jess is blushing.
Oh my god, yeah, I can't do this, guys. I have to say,
how to take compliments.
Well, the problem is I'm really bad at being in the middle of things because I'm an event manager. So I am used to wearing all black, standing to one side and going, look at it happening, isn't it beautiful?
That's why I said I would post.
I know, exactly, but I am literally like, I can't.
But you've taken something that and then you've been able to turn your experience into a great gift for others, but also something with all these celebratory things that allows others to feel included in the fact that this is a hard, and we've had very open conversations here about the reality of being somebody with female organs in the body, but that we can. That's the great thing I think about craftivism, is that it is okay to be happy and sad and joyful and challenging all at the same time.
Oh, of course it is.
Isn't one or the other.
No.
And I think that was the thing. Jess and I have like a shared thing on the Instagram where we put things, and I found a while ago I'll put this in the show notes, the ground of the Plaza Santa, I don't want to wear my glasses, in Florence in Italy, was covered in brightly coloured crocheted and knitted squares to raise awareness for violence against women. That image, whilst a beautiful image, I'm holding it up so Jess can
very
see,
powerful.
It starts another conversation.
It
lets people in who maybe wouldn't have known. And this is what we, the out of something hard can be both hard and joyful at the same time. And that, the way people will talk will be, challenging for some people to hear, but that challenge is important because we need to understand what people go through.
Well, exactly. And the other thing I would say is there is a lot of power in a visual representation of how many people. I get messages in Say Yellow for Endo every year that make me so happy, where it's people going, I had no idea there were so many of us. And the thing is, there are 1 in 10 women who have this, and 1 in 10 women and anyone assigned female at birth is included in that statistic. But there are so many people who feel very alone, and I get it, because when I looked around me, I remember going, no one else has it this bad. What's wrong with me that I can't cope? Whereas actually a few weeks ago now, one of my best and oldest friends came to stay with me for a weekend. Now, I've not seen her in person in 5 years.
Wow.
Because she lives in Glasgow. The last time I saw her was when she came down to visit me when I'd had my surgery. So I saw her a week after my surgery, and then I saw her at the end of Feb, and she came to stay. And we were talking about, she's a trainee doctor for reference. So she was talking about how she thought of me when they were doing the module on like gynecology and obstetrics and stuff. But we were talking about how fascinating, how interesting it is that people like learning about it. And she was like, when I learn about it, but then I've seen the experience through you. And she's like, there's just no awareness of the impact it has. It's like talking about periods by saying that your womb line is shedding. But not mentioning, like, if you're telling a teenager, you're not saying, oh, you're going to be, it might be uncomfortable. If it's actively sore, go see someone. This might happen. Like, no one talks about the impact of constantly being on painkillers. No one talks about the hormonal side of this as well, where sometimes your periods can be much heavier or they can be absent. For me, I remember having loads of like pregnancy scares because my period would just vanish, and that turns out to be part of endometriosis because it can be very irregular. It can also be things like pain during sex. It can be pain going to the loo, because it depends on your endometriosis. You can have endometriosis on your lungs, guys.
Wow.
Yeah, you can get diaphragmatic endometriosis. So you just get like pain all over your lungs, but it's actually, it's endometriosis. It's billed as a gynecological disease because the tissue acts like womb tissue. That is, to be very clear, I realize we haven't actually defined this. Endometriosis is a condition whereby tissue that is similar, and I cannot bold, highlight, and underline the word similar enough, because it's not the same. It's not endometrial tissue. It is tissue that is similar to the lining of your womb, is found outside of the womb. So that could be literally anywhere it can get to.
Wow, okay.
And part of the problem is it acts like your womb lining because it sheds. But when it's not in your womb,
Well, where's it going to go?
Exactly. It has nowhere to go. It adheres to your other organs. You end up with scarring. It's nasty. You get lesions. Sometimes your organs can get stuck to one another. That's quite common. But also it can inhabit different bits of your body. A really common place to get it, and this is why I want to talk about this one particularly for a second, if that's okay, is called, and I'm so angry it's called this, is called your pouch of Douglas. Now, Sam, did you know you have a pouch of Douglas?
I've got various pouches.
Well,
Which one's called Douglas? I don't know.
It luckily is the one between the back of your womb and your rectum.
Okay.
There's a weird little pouch which is called a pouch of Douglas. I feel like I have a tiny flag inside me, and I'm furious.
Yeah. Who is this Douglas, and why did he get to know that?
Exactly. It's like the uterosacral pouch, but pouch of Douglas is still what it's called, and
It's
like it'll be written POD.
Scotland and like climbed a small mountain.
I literally feel like someone has planted a flag in me. I'm not happy about it. But it's this weird, basically, it's a pouch. It's just this weird sort of little pocket that's back there, and it's very common. But it can cause pain with bowel movements, pain with sex. And what happens is a lot of women may only have pain with bowel and pain with sex before their symptoms get bad enough for anything else. Again, everyone's experience of endometriosis is different, but I want to highlight this one. Because this one can disproportionately lead to people feeling like they have IBS or misdiagnoses and stuff like that. It can also be, oh, well, maybe you're just not relaxed enough for sex. And it's like, no, you have a giant lesion behind that's being hit every time. No wonder it's sore. But if you only have those symptoms and you don't necessarily have, maybe your periods are quite sore as well, but maybe you haven't thought about it, but those are your worst ones, please go and see someone.
And push to have everything checked.
It doesn't mean it's not endometriosis. And frankly, even if it isn't endometriosis, it doesn't mean it isn't serious.
No. And I would say I've got a completely non-gynecological case where I went and was told by a physio that I had an additional bony growth on the top of my femur. Because I couldn't cross my legs anymore or anything like that. And I'd always been able to do yoga and I couldn't do it. So this man, within 2 minutes of me being in the exam room, said, yeah, you've got an additional bony growth. I said, could we like see how bad it is with it growing? He went, well, I suppose we could have an X-ray to prove I'm right.
Oh my God.
That's what was said to me. And I said, yes, please. Because anyone who's met me, listens to me, knows I am quite forthright. So I said, yes, please. So we had the X-ray, and then I get a call and he said, oh, there's nothing there. I suppose we should have an MRI to see. So then I had an MRI. So I was lucky to get these things. Sometimes we can't even get that. And then I get a call going, oh, I can't see anything that's anything. So it turned out that I actually needed a series of strengthening exercises because it was very dull and very boring. But the fact is, if I'd believed what that man had said to me, I would have walked around the rest of my life thinking I couldn't cross my legs because of additional bone in my body.
Oh my God.
No, it is a real thing. I looked it up.
Yeah, no, of course it is. But
I didn't have it. But if I'd accepted what he said to me within 2 minutes of meeting me, I would have limited the rest of my movement for the rest of my life. So if you need proof, ask for it. If you want it to be checked, ask for it.
The other thing to be aware of, particularly what makes endometriosis very challenging, is you often can't see it on scans. Often the only way to actually prove it's there is to open you up and have a look.
Which is very invasive.
Exactly. However, hot tip for anyone like me who doesn't have an appendix anymore. When they take out your appendix, they do take photos of your insides. And if you've never seen your post-op report, for me on my post-op report, it said scattered patches of endometriosis at the time, which obviously got a lot more extensive. And that is how I found out. And it was written in black and white, and it said, should probably see gynae. So I took it into my doctors and went, can I have a referral, please? And that because it was there, they went, yeah, fine. But a lot of people never see their post-op reports. Now you have access to them. Yeah. They are on your GP. So if you've ever had, or like, for example, you have terrible period pains at the moment, you had surgery a couple of years ago. If you've ever had anything like that, it's worth asking, because a lot of times medical professionals will assume someone else has told you. Yeah. My favorite example of this is when I went in on my 21st birthday with agonizing stomach pain, which we knew wasn't my period because I took all of my painkillers and it just didn't stop. I, without knowing, had appendicitis, so I had my appendix out. However, what I signed up to surgery-wise, what you sign up to is called a laparoscopy plus action, which is literally, we will open you up and we will take out the bit that's not working. So it could be like anything. It could be literally anything.
Let's hope it's not your brain.
Exactly. And then I came out, and then, I was literally getting ready to go. And then I went, oh, by the way, what did they take out? And at which point they all were like, has no one told you? And I was like, no. And then the nurse was like, well, I don't know. And she had to go find my post-op report. And they were like, oh, yeah, they've taken out your appendix. But I was like, did no one feel like they should tell? I get you're all busy. Yeah. But it would be nice to know.
But they're so busy, they don't know who said what.
Exactly. So never be afraid of asking.
Yeah. And never be afraid of that.
Yeah.
I think we probably need to do a dilemma.
I think we do.
We've had an amazing conversation, and we could probably talk more, and we can come back to this in season 2 for sure, because there's so much more to talk about crafterism. We haven't even mentioned things like the dresser girl, and at the moment there's for period poverty. There's so much else we could talk about, but I think we'll do that another time.
We'll bring it back. But if you enjoyed this episode though and you want to hear more about it, it is my pet rant topic, so more than happy to give you more content on that.
So we're going to get full on sewing now.
Yes, we are. So it's dilemma time. Now we've got to help. I keep sewing the same patterns and I'm really struggling to branch out with my makes. What do you guys think I should do? Now, when we read this, we both were like, whoops, guilty. Yep, that's me. So, Sam, what do you think?
So, first of all, I've learned to work out when I do it and to work out whether I want to keep doing it or not.
Yeah.
So, I know that when I'm using sewing to help me get through a challenge, whether that's of my own or of family or life, I know I need wins. So I will sew tried and trues or the same patterns or things that I know I'm probably going to sew and succeed at.
Yeah.
So, for example, one of my more recent ones, which is the marigold jumper, which I'm wearing today whilst filming.
It looks very lovely.
Closet Core, I knew that sewing it was highly likely to result in success and only had about 6 steps.
And you'd feel good.
Yes. And I knew that I wouldn't have to scratch my head or anything. And then I'd sew it again. And now I'm thinking about sewing it into a dress. And so it was like what did you call it? It was like a reward cycle.
Oh, yeah. I forget what I said. Oh, yeah, it's expectancy value. Yes. That's what it is.
So I know that I'm peaking at that when I need it.
Exactly.
Because I really don't need to have a failure right now. There are other times where I'm feeling robust enough for a failure.
Yeah, there's times when you're like, I'm ready to see how this goes regardless. And sometimes you're like, I'm going to cry if I get this wrong. So I'm going to do this.
So I think for me, knowing how I'm feeling to know whether I'm good with sewing the same thing or whether I need a change, and also feeling when I've got in a rut.
Yes.
What about for you?
I was, so this is me, but it's me for a couple of reasons, actually. Firstly, it's the classic, I just need something that will work. I just do. However, there's 2 others, I would say. Firstly, sometimes I like to make something multiple times because I get better at it each time. So that is the reason I own 3 chalk and notch fringe dresses. I wear all of them all the time.
Why I own 6 seasons of East summer.
Exactly. And the thing is, they're all different.
And 5 variations of the patina brown.
But the thing is, sometimes you go, do you know what? Actually, it's a really easy make. I like it, but also I wear it all the time. So why not? Like, that's part of my summer uniform because it's long enough for me to put flats on and go to a meeting and it doesn't look like it's summery. So I can have my legs out and be comfortable, but it's not like too skimpy, which isn't work appropriate. So like I have, I'm no problem with that. But like at the moment I am sewing what am I saying? Friday Pattern Company Saltwater, which technically is my third go at making it.
Yeah.
I'm making it for
third go at it.
Yeah, because I hated the first one. No, do you know what? The first one was a useful experience.
Yeah.
It taught me many, many things.
I'm glad you can see it that way.
Yeah, I hate Georgette as well. Absolutely hate it. I know it was like a peach skin polyester and I couldn't iron it, so it came out looking like a bag.
And the seams just like you can't get the
No, I had many moments with that where I was like, I can't. But then I used the top of it with a hack with the Tammy had made Rhea and made a beautiful summer dress. So for this wedding, sorry, side note, Sam will really appreciate this. I'm going to show it to her afterwards.
Yeah.
But I'm going to my future sister-in-law's wedding in May.
Okay.
It's going to be really lovely. Now, she has not explicitly said that there is a pastels dress code.
Okay.
There is for the bridal party. She's only having one bridesmaid and her mum, so they have to wear kind of pastels.
Yeah.
Now, I don't wear pastels. I look like I've been resurrected from something. Like, they just don't suit me. But I was like, I'll give it a go. Maybe I could try and not wear like a dual colour.
Yeah, yeah.
My fabric is orange and pink and I regret nothing. At least it's spring colours, guys.
Yeah. It's not wearing white.
Well,
It's not
exactly.
wearing white, you know, so.
So I am sewing the saltwater. It's the third time. But partly I feel like I want to sew the same pattern again because I know which bits do better. And because I need a good result and I need it to look good, I don't want to be trying a new pattern.
No.
It's stressful. I'm going to be sewing it the night before. Whereas this, I know I can sew really easily.
Yeah.
So I do think it depends why you're doing it.
Yeah.
The other one I'm going to throw out there is I work with a lot of the same brands because some of them, I see the patterns come out and I go, oh, that's pretty. Can't fit at least one boob in that. That's not going to happen. It is worth bearing in mind that there are some pattern brands you may be avoiding because you've tried it before and it hasn't worked for you. Like me and Tilly and the Buttons. Yeah. Me and the Block aren't friends. Yeah. So I'm not gonna. The Mabel looks nice on me actually, but apart from that, sometimes you have to remember why you don't do them. So my top tip, as always, is I would recommend keeping a list somewhere, whether it's on your phone or a post-it in the sewing room for the common things you stress about. Yeah. So if it's, well, I want to branch out. Oh, but actually, no, when I made and I'm not naming anyone here, I'm just picking random. Oh, when I made this cashmere thing, it didn't really suit me, or I didn't like the instructions for that. You can write down the reasons why. But then you can also find a way and you can go, oh, well, I've never tried a true bias pattern. Yeah. Or I've never tried this. I could do that. So that you're not talking yourself out of trying a new pattern.
And I think that's why Make 9 works for a good portion of people. Yeah. It doesn't work for everyone. Some people do it and then get sad at the end of the year they've not done it. Yeah. I think that Make 9 helps us to reflect on where do we want to step out of our comfort zone. Exactly. Some people do patterns, some people do fabric, some people like myself are doing techniques, some people are doing a whole mixture. Somebody's doing 2 different Make 9 challenges, and I wish I could remember who it was.
Some people have too much time. I'm sorry. Some people have too much time.
It's nice to try new things, but if sewing is your hobby for relaxation, for stress management, for mental health, then don't over agonize if what you're sewing is just making you feel good. But if you want to get out of it, perhaps try and Make 9, perhaps try a new company, perhaps look at someone who sews things that work for them in a similar way they work for you and try something they've done. Exactly. Or what you could do is take part in one of the challenges.
You could do. So then you've got a focus.
Definitely. When I got here today and Jess said, how are you? I said, pogo nips.
Which can I just say sounds like a swear.
It is a bit of a swear now. When this goes out, the pogo nip party will have finished. But I took part in it because it was run by Christine, my lovely friend. So I wanted to support her. But also it has the welt pocket, which I wanted to tick off my Make 9. But if I hadn't done this challenge, I probably would have avoided it. Yeah. Because doing this for Christine and taking part in this and agreeing to do it held me accountable in a positive way. Yeah. And it made me think about when I used to go to the gym with a friend when I didn't want to go, but I knew I needed to go, as I'd let her down.
Yeah.
It made me go. So like last night, I was still sewing at 10 o'clock, which is very odd for me. I'm a morning sewer, not an evening sewer.
Yeah.
But it's because I didn't want to let my friend down. And I know that Christy would be more than okay.
She'd be like, yeah, don't worry about it. It's fine.
You know,
but
I harnessed that into making myself. I even made a one-sided toile of a welt pocket.
Oh my God.
You know,
I'm impressed.
And one of them, the pocket is not quite how I want it to be, but that's okay. But it pushed me somewhere that I'm pleased I went.
Exactly. The challenges are a good thing for this.
But I can tell you now, I'll be going back to sewing some jersey for a bit.
Well, exactly. The other thing I'm going to throw out there is an idea for this one. And it sounds really simple, but I guarantee if this is you won't have thought of it. Pick a different garment. Seriously, what might be happening is you keep sewing dresses and then you're like, oh well, yeah. Whereas actually if you go, oh, I'm gonna make some shorts, or I'm gonna make a blouse, or I'm gonna
wardrobe edit.
Yeah.
What gap is in your wardrobe? Because that's what I did.
It's very motivational, that as well.
Definitely. And I realized I didn't have comfies. If anyone's watching my blog, I didn't have comfies to wear, so I was just wearing my pajamas all day when I was working from home in the winter. And so I knew my wardrobe had a gap of amazing sweatshirts and joggers to bring joy. And then it pushed me to sew jumper patterns I'd never sewn because I wanted to have an interesting at-home wardrobe. So you're right, if you're sewing the same thing and then you might even then be not wearing them because you've got too many of the same thing.
Exactly.
Have a look what's missing in your wardrobe, and that might give you the motivation to sew something different that will bring joy into your wardrobe.
The other type of motivation I'm going to throw out there as my final suggestion for this person, I am a Pinterest gal. Now, that is not to say I look Pinterest worthy, because I do not under any circumstances. However, I like Pinterest for outfit inspo and then working backwards. So sometimes you might go, and I think it's a familiar feeling for all of us, oh, I really want a dress like that. Oh, I don't know what pattern works. Or like, I want to look like that, but like, how do I make that outfit? Or how do I do this? Go onto Pinterest and then go onto somewhere like the Fold Line and look through all the dresses or look through all the trousers. And if you're like, I want to recreate that outfit, what challenge is it? So recreate the look.
Yes.
I love so recreate the look.
April,
I think so. It's normally, because I entered it by accident last year. I was like, oh, if only I could enter this into so recreate the look. And then they were like, it's live. And I was like, oh, great. This is my entry for but that can be a really fun challenge to go, oh, I'd love an outfit like that. And then you don't actually necessarily make one thing. You might make two. You might but sometimes it can be a nice kickstart to your creativity.
Yeah. So, well, we hope that's helped.
Yes.
But also at the same time, if you're saying the same thing and you're wearing them and you're enjoying them, just do it.
Exactly. And if you're letting other people tell you you're not being creative by making lots of things, yes, I suggest removing them. They can be outside people. So thank you all so much for listening. I hope listening to me ramble on about endometriosis hasn't been dreadfully dull. And we hope you've really enjoyed this episode. We are so excited to hopefully meet lots of you at the Sewing for Pleasure show.
It's a busy time for meeting people, isn't it?
And the Stitch Festival. Sam will not be with me at the Stitch Festival. Worst luck. However, I will be there and on my own, so please do come and say hello. I'm there on the Saturday morning. And then if you don't know where you're going, you can come to Chiswick with me for this endo party. But it's going to be a really fun month. And then we have a great next episode for you, so that if you haven't been to the sewing events, you can live vicariously through us.
Definitely. In the show notes, there is the link to the Facebook group where we put bigger show notes, where you can meet other people who listen. We've got the Instagram account, and we have an email address, which will be in the show notes as well.
Can I ask a little favour? We're nearly at the end of our first season. And we're also quite near 1,000 followers. And I would love it. It's a cosmetic thing, but I think it would be fun if we could hit 1,000 followers by the end of our series. So if you don't follow us on Instagram, I promise we're not really annoying. Please do follow us. So you can see when new stuff's coming out. Yeah, exactly. And meet other people. And we also tend to share, other people when they reply to our questions and stuff. Shout out to all the people who replied saying that they also have a Kit Kat and a cup of tea on the train. I feel validated. And also drop us a message if there's anything you want to hear us talk about, if you've got a dilemma, if you have a sewing fail, if you have a really embarrassing sewing story that you want to be kept anonymous, but you've just got to tell someone, we're your place, send it in.
Oh, do you know what? Anything that anyone wants to admit to.
Oh my God, it doesn't have to be sewing related.
Just do it.
Yeah, crack on. Whatever you need to do, lads. So we thank you so much for listening, guys, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.